or I don't think people realize how much of an like overwhelming brain fudge that is for a human being.
Welcome to Log Off. Everyone has an internet story to tell, and today we're getting Kwame Appiah's. Kwame is the head of influencer and creator engagement at Later, which is a social media management platform that is indispensable at my company, Pennant Digital. He's also the co-host of Later's podcast, Beyond Influence. He's a former professional soccer player and development coach, and he's a successful creator in his own right with nearly 500,000 followers on social media. He's probably best known to the masses as a contestant on Netflix's Love is Blind, which is, dare I say, the greatest reality television show of all time. We'll get to all of that, but first, Kwame, let's start this podcast the way we always do, at the beginning. What is your earliest internet memory?
Earliest internet memory that I can remember right now is my parents being on the second floor of our house. We had a townhouse, had 3 floors. They're on the second floor of our house, and I remember kind of just lingering along the stairs because I really, really, really wanted to hop onto CartoonNetwork.com and play a game. And back in those days, you had one option. You couldn't be on the phone or use your phone access and also be in the internet. So I just kept lingering on the stairs until my parents were like, okay, fine, you can go log on, dial up, and take away our phone service and play some video games. So that's the earliest one that I can remember, man.
So you started off with like Cartoon Network type stuff. What was the other, type of stuff you were consuming when you finally got controls of the family computer?
Yeah, I think at that age, most of the stuff that I was consuming was just like cartoon or light or joke oriented, So you visit all of those. I can't remember like in depth the actual names of them, but I do know that they were all stuff that I would just go to just get my mind off of things. And I really, really loved Cartoon Network. I really, really loved Nickelodeon back then. Really, really loved the Disney Channel. So like all of them would all market like their like video game options on their sites. So anytime I had a chance to, I would visit those. And I think there were like a lot of other game sites as well where you would play like some cool advanced level of Tetris or something like that. So just the internet gamer when I started out.
Do you remember when you first started to like interact with other people online?
Yes, I remember AIM back in the day. Yes. AIM, my goodness. Everybody had their away messages and those were the golden days, man. When you would come back from school and the first thing you would do is you would hop on AIM and you would chat with all of your closest friends as if you didn't just see them, but it felt cool being able to interact from a distance. It felt so technologically advanced, and we just loved doing that. I think there were some ways where you could like play games, maybe not through AIM or through other sites where you would just both connect on different ends. So yeah, it was cool to be able to chat with people. AIM was definitely something that I used a lot. I can remember some of my away messages.
I was going to ask, do you remember away messages and also like that first screen name you had?
Yeah. So my very first screen name was Kwame 390 because my birthday is March 1990. And so, so it's funny. I think my Yahoo email, which I haven't used in like 6 years, is still that one. But like I occasionally check it just to see if I've gotten, I don't know, a prince from Nigeria who wants to give me a bunch of money. But yeah, man, Kwame 390.
Nice. Do you remember when you first started maybe like creating or publishing anything, putting yourself out there?
I would say around the Vine days. If everyone remembers Vine was like that was peak internet. It was before influencers were influencers. And I remember looking back then when like King Bach was a Vine creator. And if I stayed consistent with Vine, I feel like I probably could have been you know, I wouldn't say to that degree or that level of creator, but I was pretty good at Vine when it came out. I used to make, so I had this trend of a stuffed animal that was like that came to life, right? So I would, you know, I remember the first episode, you know, the first little clip that I ever made, it was like 7 seconds because Vines were really short. And it was just me piecing together things that like I like turned off the light and then like I switched to my face and I acted surprised. Then I like moved it over to the door and I like motioned the door shut and I turned it back to my face and I like built up this thing of this scary doll. And then the last slide was I kicked my sliding chair to rotate and I filmed that and it just stopped right at me and it was like a teddy bear. And then I voiced over and I was like, "Hello, Kwame." And it's just, I remember that. Man, yeah, those were the golden days. I loved Vine. I loved trying to create stuff. I did stuff with my, cause that's when I was in college, you know, so you had friends around. That was my first, you know, step into not just creating content, but also collaborating and bringing people around you into things. So that was a really, really cool part of like, just like my internet life.
Do you remember why you stopped on Vine? Was it because the service basically shut down or did you kind of lose interest?
You know, I think right around then I was dating. I was dating a girl and I think, you know, it was either be consumed by Vine or, you know, like actually have some time to spend with my girlfriend at the time. And so I chose the girlfriend and, you know, all in all, you know, great decisions because, you know, you get to like just live your life and just focus on what's going on in front of you. And I think nowadays we could do that a bit better. But, you know, I think I got a leg up back in the day and just transitioning to being more in person than I was on Vine. But I would say for a solid month and a half, I created so many videos and I started gaining traction and people were like excited about my Vine. So it was cool.
Do you think those still exist out there? Like, did you shut the account down or could we go find them?
So when you're going through the background check portion of a lot of these reality shows, they get to, you know, they check your internet footprint. And my Vine definitely, you know, you could have done a lot of searching and found some of my Vines. But I think because of that, they made me delete every trace of anything that was out there. Because, you know, you're in college and you're acting stupid. And sometimes, like, I hate when things are dug up from 10, 15 years ago and people try to judge you off of that. Because, like, you're a kid. You know? You're a kid. You don't know any better. But, yeah, I mean, I used to definitely act reckless and have fun on my Vine. And so in order to make sure people weren't able to go back into those depths of my life, in order to get past a certain degree of background checking, I had to delete a lot of things.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because, you know, when it comes to Love is Blind, like you've already rehashed all the stuff that happened on screen, but I'm very interested in the like digital machinations. Like to start, when you realized you were going to be on the show, I guess one of your first moves was to go back and scrub your social media accounts.
Yeah, that's something that's not just advised, but insisted on. You know, so I think that one is an important, like, immediate layer is, I think nowadays anyone who gets into reality TV has this belief that, you know, they're going to take off after, and usually does happen. So it makes sense. But I think when I was getting on, I mean, you know, the industry travels so fast. When I was about to get on Love is Blind, it was more of like an insisted point of like, go out and check your social media because something could happen. You know, I think people do it by default nowadays, but, you know, 3 years ago or so when I was casting, it was like, okay, I guess people could look into my past. Like, I'll go check it. And, you know, our casting crew and, you know, the people who are doing the due diligence definitely make you go check out that stuff. So I would say from this point on, and, you know, actually even from 3 years and on, like, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have a heavy level of advisory to tell you to go scrub everything from your past, just because, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting era that we're in like culture and society. So it's just smart to go back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then when you go into the pods, you don't have access to your phone at all, right? And you're going through this life-altering experience. You're not communicating with the outside world. You come out with a fiance. Were you like having any sort of like social media withdrawals? Did you get the shakes at all?
No. So the cool thing about Love is Blind is you really do get, you realize how focused you could be on certain things when you don't have distractions, you know? And so when the phones are taken away at first, you have withdrawals for like the first day because like you're sitting there and something cool's happening and you're like, oh, I want to text somebody, you know? And then once you settle in and spend some time with the guys who are on your side, you're like, okay, cool. Nobody here has their phone. We're all just getting to know each other. And I made some, like the relationships you build during the Love is Blind filming are so deep because you don't have those distractions, you know? So the withdrawals do last maybe a day or two. And then after that, like you're so focused on the people around you, not just the women on the other side, but the men who are on your side as well. You know, there are guys that I still hang out with at least once or twice a week from that show. So yeah, they've almost become like best friends. I'm actually, yeah, like I said, I'm going to go see a movie today with one of the guys from the show, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. And you get to focus on just like what's around you and what's in front of you when those phones are taken away. And for me, it was funny. Like, so my birthday was 3 days after filming started. So when I got my phone back, I picked it up to like 3,000 missed notifications. So it was kind of crazy. And I remember having people like message me a week after I got my phone back, like, hey, just checking in on you. Did you, you know, get my message, get my happy birthday, you know? So, yeah, I mean, it took a little bit to adjust, but once you got into it, you forgot all about it. And then when you got it back, you obviously like, you were jittery and excited and you wanted to let everybody in the world know what was going on in front of you. I mean, you couldn't be as in depth with everybody, but you know, when something exciting is happening, you want to tell the people that matter most. And so, yeah, I reached out to my sister, my brother, and yeah, had a conversation with my mom as well.
Did you feel like you carried some of those, I don't know if lessons is the right word, but like some of those behavioral adjustments that you encountered in the pods? Like, did you carry those into life after the pods? As far as like, I'm not going to pick up my phone right now. Did you have better habits coming out?
I wish I did. I wish I did. I think as human beings, we're so, we have a significant amount of recency bias in the way that we do things. You know, we kind of follow the track of what is most recent and familiar for us. So, you know, when I initially didn't have my phone, I probably could have been really comfortable without it. But nowadays, not just the fact that I use my phone and have it on me all the time, but I also, I make money through my phone as well, right? Like it's really, my social presence is really important. And so I do wish that there's a point, I think, like I say this to everyone, I think in like 5 to 10 years, even though influencer marketing will be the biggest that it's ever been, if I have the capacity to, I'd love to cut it down significantly in terms of my exposure and my use. Now it all depends. You know, I have kids at that point, and it makes sense to help them grow their social media as well, because I'm like, social media is something that can be sustaining and beneficial in a lot of ways. Right. And so if I can use my platform to help grow my child's platform, I would do that for them. And then when they get to a point where they want to decide if they want to use it or not, they can make that, you know, decision. But, because I know some people will say like, oh, don't put your kids on social media. And, you know, I think everyone has their own preferences and thoughts, and no one is right, no one is wrong. It just goes for what works for you. But I do think if I have the capacity to pass some influence on to my child as they grow up and see if that is a benefit for them when they become capable of really accessing that power and influence themselves, I will do it. And then if they choose not to, whatever, they can move on from it. But yeah, I think in 5 to 10 years from now, I would limit my usage unless my usage could mean helping my, child build a platform for themselves that could help them, secure some savings or money or opportunities when they're, at the right time.
Sounds like you've put a lot of thought into that. What does that look like? Are you setting up accounts for them and kind of posting as them, or are you thinking you'll post about them and then eventually they will create their own accounts? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, the elephant in the room in social media is like, I think in just about everything, it's really important to be cognizant of who and what you're doing it for. When it comes to social media, if you are bringing your kids onto it, if it's for yourself, then you're doing the wrong thing, right? And I think you can trace it back to just about any level at which kids have the ability to make money. You hear about all these Disney and Nickelodeon kids whose parents made tons of money and then, wasted it all or in some way kept them captive so that they could have access to it. And that's one of the harshest things you can do to somebody. I hate the thought of exploitation. But when it comes to being able to use social media as a platform to benefit my child, like the hope is I'll set up an account for them. I'll post them, right? Like my cute little kid, through having a platform and sharing access to that, hopefully they get deals and opportunities, like whether it's diapers, whether it's baby kid clothes, whatever the case may be. Hopefully the goal is to store all of that money for them, like, put that in a place where they'll have access to it. Like this is before you could even understand you were working hard, and when you get of age and you want to leverage that whichever way you want to, it's yours. So I think it's really important that if you are doing something like this, especially putting your kid out into the world, that you have the right beliefs and the right kind of like thought process behind it and the right motives, that what you are doing are for that child. Because if you're putting that child's face all over the internet and what you're doing is really for you and, your new car or your new house or whatever the case may be, I don't think that that's fair to the child. So that's my thought behind it.
Okay. Yeah. That kind of leads me to one of my other questions about the show, which is a pretty common criticism is that, and this has been levied against quite a few contestants, is that people only go on it to be famous, be rich, make money. Mm-hmm. You obviously came out of it more famous than you went in. You're rightfully making the most of that. But what would you say to people who think like that was your only intention?
I think it can be a harsh situation. And I was talking to somebody about it yesterday. Is like, it's really difficult to put yourself out to the world and have any expectation, because you don't know what's going to happen. Right. And I think we've seen it in some recent seasons of Love is Blind where people have gone on to, become famous and it's kind of, kicked back at them, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, when you go into something like this, I think the initial thought process is more, I guess it depends. Everyone has their own motivations. My motivation was for the adventure and the experience. I'm going to be honest with you, because I hit a point in my life where I was having a lot of adventure that I really enjoyed and could see and could experience, but the ability to share it wasn't there. And so I thought going on Love is Blind would accomplish a couple things. I thought, one, it would give me an experience that is very limited to the world, right? I'd be in 0.0000001% of people on this earth. And so I wanted to experience that. Two, in my actual life, my career life and personal life, I had done so much that was so fun and so amazing. But like when I go on vacation or when I go do something cool, sometimes I don't take that many pictures, right? Because I'm just there and I feel as though when that experience is over, I kind of move on from it and I can talk about it later, but there hasn't really been a great way to compartmentalize that experience and kind of put it in a vault that I can always come back to. And so one key part of that was I wanted to start sharing those experiences with somebody so that there was a reason to capture those moments. And, I think Chelsea laughs at me all the time about it, or laughs or yells, whichever way you want to put it. But, when I went into Love is Blind, I was looking for an adventure buddy, right? Because I always thought that the way to really create deep, lasting connection is to share what you have. And so when I went into Love is Blind, I didn't know I was going to get married, but I knew I was going to find somebody that I wanted to share experiences with. And so that was my motivation. I think nowadays you can have whatever motivation you want to. And I will be honest with you, most people who go on dating shows nowadays do have, aspirations of fame. And you can see that. It's very obvious. But I think like when you look at up to season, I wouldn't even, maybe all of Love is Blind. And I agree with your earlier statement. I do think Love is Blind is the best reality show out there, especially reality dating, without a doubt. And so there's a lot of different motivations. But I would say my personal motivation was to find adventure and to find a person to adventure with. And if I found that person who could really help me make the most of my adventures in life, that would mean that we were meant to continue our adventures on beyond that. And I got really lucky, and so it worked out. I do think a lot of people who go into the situation now have ulterior motives, and it could be, and that's okay, because there are people who go on for the right reasons, who find their person. No matter what, you're going to have a large sample size, and you won't be able to weed it all out. So in order to have the good, wholesome, beautiful relationships and connections, you will have some of the, attention seeking or fame seeking or influencer focused people as well. So you could have your motivations. It is what it is. As long as we still get one or two wholesome, beautiful stories, it's okay. And I think I was lucky that I got to have one of those beautiful, awesome, wholesome experiences,
I think they're kind of blending together at this point, but I think season 4 has the best track record, right? You guys had 3 weddings and all 3 people are still together.
Yes. Yeah. One just had a baby. One couple just had a baby. The other one, is doing big things in their own rights. And we just bought a house. So yeah, I mean, we're the most successful season. I think it is funny to say that, right? It's not a brag. It's a reality of it. And I'm really proud of that. I think we had an incredible cast. Seattle was amazing. So in terms of like the genuine goal of Love is Blind, I don't think Seattle's going to get beat for quite a while. But I think for entertainment factor, whole different story. Like season 5 and 6 were very entertaining. Season 6 was probably one of the most entertaining seasons of any reality TV you'll ever see. Yeah.
So then after you guys wrap, there's this like period where everything that happened. The rest of the world is about to watch the entire thing unfold. What is the mandate like from Netflix during that time? Like, are you under a social media gag order?
So you're allowed to be pretty public with each other for a really long time, right? You can't do any, you're bound to expiring posts, right? So you can do stories with them, stuff like that, anything that has an expiration date, but you cannot do static and lasting posts. So I can't put anything on my wall about this person, or in a few months, I'll have to take it down anyway. Right. And, we're pretty free to roam for quite a while up until it gets close to announcement date. Because when the cast is announced, you should not have any traces of that other person. Like I had TikToks that showed me in our old apartment where Chelsea also had videos, and I had to take those down because we weren't allowed to have anything that could correlate or bring some kind of connection to both of us. So you do have to be careful of it once you get closer to launch date and like cast drop date. But up until then, you're completely cool. I mean, we were going to concerts, we were out in the world because there's no way somebody's going to remember us from 8 months ago and be like, oh my gosh, you know, like it just doesn't happen. So yeah, we were good. But once we were getting closer to that cast launch point, we couldn't do anything out in public. We couldn't post anything that would relate to us in any way. And we just had to be really chill about things. You could post content from Love is Blind itself. And they would kind of give you a little media folder, but nothing to allude to we stayed together or we didn't, you know? So you'll see all my posts during that period of time were very ambiguous, you know? So that's the way that we keep it.
And so what's it like watching kind of the public's perception develop over time? Like, you know what's going to happen. You probably want to jump in and defend yourself at certain points. I mean, some things can be super impacted by the way things are edited. Like, do you really feel like handcuffed in that, like during that time?
That was a really tough time for me. Because I think what I realize as time goes on is you can't really judge a person based off of what you see on screen. Because there's a narrative and there's a story that needs to be told. And if that story is more exciting with someone portrayed as a villain, then it's going to be that. Now, I'm not going to say I had did the best or kept my best composure throughout filming. I made my mistakes. I for sure did. But I definitely, even when I reflect back on it, I thought that they were human moments. You know what I mean? The reality of it is on Love is Blind, you get engaged to somebody within 9 days of starting a conversation with them. And then everything is, you know, supposed to be jolly when you see them 2 or 3 days later. And then, you know, I'll make a reference to it, like the Mexico, when you first see your ex's scene. I don't think people realize how much of an like overwhelming brain fudge that is for a human being, right? Yeah. Because in this dating experiment, you are simulating kind of a hyperbolic time chamber for your dating, right? 9 days feels like a year, right? Because that's when you're supposed to propose to this person. So you date 2 people for roughly a year, right? You propose to one of them, things go great. And then just about 2 days later, you see the other person that you've just dated for a year. You know what I'm saying? People in real life date someone for a year and don't get over them for 3 to 6 months, right? Somehow in our experience, people watch the TV and they get incredibly judgmental and they're like, oh, why is this person in any way like giving this person attention or talking to them or whatever? And it's like, it's been 2 days. In real life, everyone would understand what's going on. But when you put me under this microscope, when you put people under this microscope, they're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Why are they interacting together? Or why are there lost feelings or whatever the case may be? Like, I just think that that's very, very, very human. And people need to start giving people more empathy and understanding for that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, there's very, very deep connection that goes into this this process. And like I said, I'm best friends with most of the guys who are on that side. And I didn't create as deep a connection with them as I did with the women that were on the other side. And so the depth of connection is really, really difficult to erase, you know, especially within a matter of a day or two. So I think, I think storylines are told in a certain way. I think we are going to do what we are going to do. We're going to be judgy. We're going to be choosy. That's like just human nature. We like to pick apart things and put ourselves in different positions and roles and try to pretend we're in someone else's shoes. But ultimately, I think we need to start giving people a little bit more slack. You know, if they're openly vile, then it is what it is. And I think throughout our season 4, we may have seen a person or two who was kind of openly vile, like very noticeably, you know. I won't name any names, but I think apart from that, I think ultimately when people are going through a human interaction and human expressions and human feelings, I think sometimes we can cut them some slack. But with that being said, I do like to give people a little bit of slack when I'm watching myself, because I know what it's like to be in their shoes and be handcuffed in a situation where a story is being told and you can do nothing about it.
Right. So as someone who's gone through it, do you have any advice for people who suddenly find themselves like with a giant digital spotlight on them?
I would say, you know, and I'm about to make a reel about this actually, and it might be out before this episode is out, is that like maturing is realizing that paying less attention to, or the trolls are just like people with nothing better to do. You know, the amount of people that watch Love is Blind, and it's really funny when you look at my internet following, it's, you know, I think like 460K. But when you look at my real following, it's unbelievable, right? I was in the middle of Rome and people were coming up to me asking for pictures, right? You know what I'm saying? And so for people who get this digital spotlight on them, especially people who are so widely spread to where their audience could literally hit the like multi-millions, you know, the 9s and 10 figures of people. If someone takes the time to comment something negative, just ignore it or delete it. Those are your only two options. Don't react back. Like, I'm someone who no longer cares like I used to. I used to be so offended when people would put something negative on my wall. And then I like at a certain point I got there and I was just like, damn, I don't care at all anymore. Like, I appreciate the engagement. You know what I mean? Hopefully it makes my post get a few more likes here and there. But I think it's really important to just keep your head and realize that your footprint is so much larger than what the people who have access to you on the internet. You know, there could be, if a million people watch the show, 100,000 people might follow you, and only maybe 1,000 of those people would be willing to say something negative to you. So your impact is so much greater than the negativity that comes in your direction. So like, just move past it. Either you delete it or you just let it happen. And I've noticed that as a trend now for a lot of influencers is like, I'll see some posts that have a top liked comment that is incredibly negative and it's never been deleted. Because that negativity creates dialogue, you know?
That's true.
And, yeah. You know, you can't have people always think the same way that you think, and you can't have people always like you. And so if they're going to say something negative, unless it's just like overwhelmingly harmful or derogatory in some way, like, don't pay it any mind. If someone says something that's just slightly disrespectful or rude, I'm just like, I don't even care. I'll move on.
That's a great approach to negative attention. On the other side of the coin, that kind of, I guess, digital footprint brings a lot of opportunities. Do you have advice or recommendations for people who need to filter through things like that all of a sudden, like all these offers and things like that? Yeah,
I would say, as someone who is new to the industry, find yourself a very well-trusted management team, brand management, talent management team. And shop around and have an understanding of what that team offers for you. You know, for me, I jumped onto a talent management team like right away. I took my first offer, and I'm going to be honest with you, I maybe shouldn't have. I think that team taught me a lot about understanding the landscape, but like at a high level. You know, I think that in order to be successful in this industry, you should get some management no matter what. I think you should shop around and understand what those management teams have to offer. I think that you should look for management teams that have the ability to create, mold, and expand and help you grow, as opposed to management teams that kind of just pole vault off of your success or image. You know, and so those are kind of the initial things that I would say is there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming your way. You should get someone who knows how to negotiate and understand and have those conversations, you know. And I have a management team now. It's pretty cool. They, you know, I have a legal advisor in every contract that comes my way. I have a team of 2 people that tend specifically to every deal that I'm handling. You know, you want to make sure that company cares about you as a creator and focuses on you. You know, I could text them right now and have a text by the end of this podcast, you know, and I think that that's really important. Really, 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 really important, because you want to have access to these people. And obviously you don't text them at 12 at night, but in order to really get the most out of your brand, you have to know that you have people who are willing to help you expand and not just coming back to the exploitation, want to just exploit your image or just springboard off of what you've already created for yourself. You want people who are thinking about the long term.
Do you have any advice for people who are trying to balance like, a huge influx of opportunities like that, but also trying to keep their content authentic and relatable?
Sometimes that can be a really hard balance. I've talked to some of the best creators out there, and, they'll have incredibly relatable content that doesn't do well sometimes. And they'll have, generic content that will do well sometimes. I think all you can do is try to be yourself and really, really highlight what your personality shows. Like, I think I'm funny. I think I'm a funny guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Kawhi Leonard moment. I'm a fun guy, right? So yeah. I try to highlight those moments and things. Like I did an ad for Lowe's today, and Lowe's is so like far from what my typical brand would be, because I'm like what I push in terms of my image is very like streetwear, fashion, creativity, color. Like, I don't know, I have a very interesting, like vibrant brand. And so when you think about Lowe's, your initial thoughts are like, I don't know, quote unquote boring or subtle or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to Lowe's on a Saturday morning, you're not thinking I'm about to have the time of my life. But in actuality, there is some fun to it, right? Because there's a way to be creative with things. And like, if you are going to start a project, you're starting a project to create something, So next time you go to Lowe's, think about how can I make my back deck look super cool, And so that's kind of how I approached it. Very excited, very interested in what I was about to do. And then I added some comedy. It was, I was talking about, Scotch cushion lock, and it's kind of this wrapping paper that allows you to not use any tape. It's super recyclable. So like in the process of speaking about it, one of my clips was it was talking about wrapping your, the items you care about the most, the things that you want to make sure don't break. And so like one of the tiny, like 3-second scenes, I put my dog in it. And like, I started wrapping my dog, as like a joke. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, wrong item. You know what I mean? So just little things like that infuse what you want to connect with your audience into your content. It's not always going to hit. But as long as you stay true to that part of you, you'll start to see people identify with those qualities.
Sounds like, Lowe's was willing to play ball. You had a really cool like Zillow campaign. You had Chelsea like turn your search for your first house into, content, obviously. Do you have advice for companies and brands, like the best way to work with creators?
Yeah, let them be creative. I think we talk about this on my podcast all the time. Like just about anytime that I talk to a creator about like, hey, what was the best part of this collaboration? People always say like, this brand let me be creative. Chelsea and I's first post for Zillow was pretty elaborate. I'm, hoping to work on another one pretty soon. And I'm hoping that it's like very different from that one. Super comedic, super light. I'm going for short form. So maybe like 10 seconds to try to tell the story. And I'm hoping that they like it because I love the message that it portrays. I'm going for a very like comedic, traditional, like husband and wife post of like wife loves shopping, husband's like save the money. Like, the kind of stuff that you see on the internet all the time. So something that kind of holds true, something that is relatable. And I'm hoping that the brand is like, yeah, you know what, if you want to do it, we love it, go with it. And so that's the biggest thing for me. I've worked with some brands that are very, very, micromanagey. And that makes it really, really difficult to tell a story. You want to be able to just tell a story the way that you see it in your head. And the further you deviate from it, the further it is from the story that you mean to tell, and the further away from the way that your audience relates to it.
Yeah, I think the audience can pick up on that immediately when it's not authentic. So
exactly. So you like, ideally, if a brand can let you present yourself as you are, like it'll work out for the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you have a limited amount of time here. You got to go see a movie with Zach. So let's get into our dumb internet questions we ask every single guest. First up, tab check, Kwame, right now. How many tabs do you have open on your web browser?
Oh, man. So in front of me, I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I have 17 tabs open right now.
Is that pretty typical? Is that like you're deep diving something, or are you waiting to read that stuff? How's that usually lay out?
I would say most of it is stuff that I'm going to read later or work on later. I think what I need to do a little bit better is, I think all of us have a little bit of attention deficit, because you're working on something and you're like, oh, I thought about something else. And so that definitely plays into how I keep my tabs open, because I have like 4 or 5 things that I'm actively working on. I need to do a significantly better job at segmenting what I'm working on. So it's just that I have a lot of things where my mind goes in a million directions and I need to start focusing better.
All right, let's get into some of our other questions about the good and bad parts of the internet. When you open your social media apps, what are the algorithms feeding you right now?
All right, let's check it out. I'll actually go.
Yeah, let's do it live.
Let's do it live. Let's see. So this makes a lot of sense. So the first 3 posts are Porsche 911s. One of the posts is a giant house in Texas. Those, like, there are people who live in, I don't know, Asia, who probably have giant houses in Texas in their feed, because giant houses in Texas are the best thing to look at, even if you're never going to move to Texas. And then I have a lot of gymnastic stuff, and that makes sense because we've been obsessed with the Olympics gymnasts. And then we're right back into Porsches, and there's a Ferrari there, and then there's some reality TV. So yeah.
Nice. Favorite accounts to follow on social media? What are those? What are the car accounts you're following?
Car accounts. Let's see. So I follow Hype Whip. I think it's called Hype something. Okay. I think it's called Hype Whip. Yeah, I'm obsessed with supercars. So, I mean, like car stuff. I definitely I follow BMW. I follow Mercedes because I'm a big Mercedes guy. I just started following Maserati because my dream car just swapped a couple days ago. Well, maybe like a week now. My dream car is now the Maserati MC20. And so I just followed them so I can, kind of keep up with that. So those are, the generic ones. And then apart from that, just like a bunch of supercar ones. And I would say for me, it's less like that I follow these accounts, more that I follow the hashtags, and so Porsche 911 is definitely one of them. I don't know if I'm ever going to get one, but it's one of those cars where once I have everything settled and I just want a Sunday driver, I'm probably going to get one. And it's not going to be a newer one. It's probably going to be like a 2005 or like a 92 or something, like something old classic, so we'll see. But I definitely, I would say hashtag wise, I do a lot of Porsche stuff, do a lot of Mercedes stuff.
Nice. Anything outside of the realm of cars that you're following?
Complex. Complex is, it's a big kind of hip hop and urban culture publication. So I love following Complex. I do a lot of I'm going to Complex Con. I follow Complex FC, which is their soccer page, which actually follows me back, but they're like never active. So I was going to ask them if they wanted me to take over their page for like a week one time.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. So I'll see how that goes. Apart from that, I would say like a few funny pages. And then let me see. I'll literally click into my most recently followed and see what I followed. Following. A lot of soccer teams. Oh my goodness, a lot of soccer teams. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I'm a little surprised my For You it doesn't have more soccer on it, but I think it's just because of the phase that we're in right now, because usually my For You page is literally all soccer. Oh, and there's golf as well. I've been golfing a lot lately and looking up golfing videos, so it makes sense.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What is a corner of the internet people might be surprised you're interested in?
Anime.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. I love anime. I'm a big nerd. Zach is a big nerd as well, so we geek out together. Another person who's kind of can be an anime nerd at times, more so the culture than the anime itself, is Brett from our season as well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So anime runs deep. Brett and Tiffany, his wife, they were just in Japan a few months ago. So Japan is number one on my places to travel list because I'm obsessed with like the anime culture. I was so enthralled in it when I was growing up. And so I want to go back and then check it out. Like a lot of my favorite movies are Japanese anime. And so, yeah, so definitely an area that people would be surprised that I'm into. I just met Dom from Perfect Match a few months ago as well. He's a big anime guy. So we're thinking about going to like a convention together sometime. He's a bit more of an anime guy than I am, I will say, you know. He like does a lot of the dress up and painted nails, and I think that's a little further than I'm used to. But you know, hey, to each his own. And so I want to go explore more of it, maybe while I'm, you know, in it and really soaked into that environment. Maybe I'll get into costume.
There we go.
Yeah.
What is the last thing that made you truly laugh online?
Oh my goodness. Let me see. So I think just like any other relationship, Chelsea and I send each other memes and stuff all the time. Let me see. What's the last thing that I sent her? What's the last thing that made me laugh? So I guess she brings up this thing all the time. There's a kid and he's asked like what something spells, and I think it was supposed to be like bread or something. Like the person was like, what does this spell like? And I think it was like BRED, something like, I don't know, something that's not the word he said. And he looks at it and he's like, peanut butter. It's hilarious. Kids are always the funniest on the internet, man. So yeah, those are always good.
All right, let's get into the dark side. What was your most scarring moment on the internet, if you can bring yourself to disclose it?
Oh yeah, man, this was a bad one. You know, early on in the showing of Love is Blind, your inbox goes pretty wild. I think this is when I still had like sub 100,000 followers. So we were still on the early end of things. And you know, I say it out because like, these are things we will all experience. And you know, as a person of color, as a Black man, I think it's really tough on the internet sometimes whenever it comes to any infringement or any kind of negativity that occurs on the internet. People go after what is the most obviously noticeable or notable thing about you. And as a Black man, people notice my color first. And so there was a lot of racism and bullying to that degree when it started out. And I definitely, you know, when it first started happening, I remember I had, you know, some days where I would like lay in fetal position for a couple of days, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was less that it was targeted at me, more so that I was starting to realize how prevalent it is in the world, you know? And that's a really, really tough spot to be in, because you're like, you want to have faith in the world that people are changing and things are moving forward. But, you know, I think due to society and our political climate and everything that's coming together, I think day after day, you notice it a bit more that we're way further from where we thought we were in terms of progress. So that's a really, really tough one. So I would say bullying that was related to racism or racially charged abuse is definitely the hardest thing that I've experienced on the internet.
Man, that's awful. When you need to take a break from stuff like that, or you need to pry yourself away from your devices? Do you have any, like special tactics that might be helpful to others when they're going through stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to disconnect as far away from that thing as possible. For me, I go play a video game, and I think it's tough too because playing a video game, sometimes there's bullying on that too. But I don't take that one to any offense. The people on the other end of video games have no idea who I am, so I could care less. But when it's on the internet, it's a bit tougher. When it's your face and your image, it's a bit tougher. But for me, I go play a video game. I'll play something that's, either FIFA or Apex Legends, something that is team oriented. Because I think so I've made some friends on the internet that I'll probably never meet in life, but I know everything about them. And so I think it's funny because you're disconnecting from the internet by connecting to the internet, but you're connecting at a different capacity. You're having fun with people, and it's just purely for the sake of having fun. If you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. It doesn't affect your life in any way. And so I think whenever I play video games, I attribute it to just the ability to be careless and just enjoy and carefree. I guess more carefree than careless, but either way, same thing. But yeah, I would say playing video games helps get me out of that. Even though it connects me to the internet, it connects me to the internet in a positive way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where would you be without the internet?
Where would we be? Oh my goodness. Man, I don't even know. I might have never moved to Seattle. I might, because my job is what moved me to Seattle, and my job was heavily internet focused back in the day. I used to work for ZoomInfo. And so I might have just stayed in the Maryland or DC area and just kind of hung out there. So even before I came to Portland and then got cast for Love is Blind, and then, the internet, approached me in a completely different way than it used to, it is what moved me here and what brought me here and what gave me substance and meaning on the West Coast. And so I have a lot to thank the internet for.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. But if the internet were to go bye-bye tomorrow, what's the one thing you would save?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. That might be the best. Oh, wow. Can I steal that from my own podcast? That's an incredible question. Wow. Let's see. What would I save? If you could give me like 10 seconds, I'm going to look at my favorites folder.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see. And I'm going to look all the way in the past and see what I had. I would save the photos or videos that I had from traveling. Nice. That's a definite one, because the minute I scroll to the, earliest photos that I have in my favorites, I start seeing myself in different places. And I have pictures of other people who were with me, who were smiling and overjoyed, or I have pictures of the ocean. Just all things that make you smile. I'm a big, I love water. I can't swim. I'm working on that. I was supposed to learn how to swim this summer, but we'll see. I can't swim, but I love the ocean. I think it's so beautiful and so calming, and obviously it can be dangerous as well. But, my ultimate goal when it comes to living situation is to be literally on a beach where I could just open the door and walk 10 steps and dip my foot in the water, whether it's a lake or an ocean or a river or whatever the heck you want to call it. But I want some running water around me because it's really peaceful. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I went to Kitzbühel, Austria, and I was in an apartment that was on top of the bridge went this way, but the edge of the bridge, I was on the edge of the bridge. And so you could just literally, you could open your window and just throw a rock into the stream that was coming by. It was massive as well. So that was a cool spot. So I would say anything that reminds me of just the travel that I've experienced in life, because like those memories are just the best. They remind you of just carefree times, and, you know, when you could just enjoy and, you know, not have to worry about anything. I think vacations are amazing. You know, and as long as you can properly disconnect. And I do need to do a better job of that, where when I go on vacation, I just need to put my phone away for a day or two, you know? So yeah, I would say if I could save anything, it'd be the pictures of me traveling.
Man, I know you liked the question, but that might've been our best answer we've gotten to it. So nice job there. Thank you, Kwame, for this discussion, for your contributions to the internet. This is Ryan Perry saying, log off. The internet will still be there when you get back.